Hi, good evening, good
How are
morning
you?
for
We're
me.
live right now. Oh, so what
Yes,
time is it in Calgary right now?
now it's 9:02 a.m.
9:02. Thank you for making it. Fernanda, we still have people. We're at about 50 attendees. People keep on rolling in. Fernanda, I don't think you've met Keith from the trade office here in Johannesburg. He's going to be joining us this evening, and we'll start the webinar officially, just talking about Canada and all the merits it has.
Muito
And
prazer.
I don't think obviously you haven't met, so
Prazer
now
é
would be a
meu.
good time for you guys to introduce each other.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here tonight.
Likewise.
Okay, so we'll be starting in about, I'd say 60 seconds. We still have people coming through, which is fantastic. Okay, well, we're going to begin this evening's webinar on studying Canada. I know there's still people trickling in the lobby, but tonight's webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Nicholas Abramis from Beaver Immigration. We're a licensed Canadian immigration firm located here in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Mr. Keith Bangery from the Canadian Trade Office, who's our very special guest, who's here to talk about Canada and the benefits of coming to Canada and all it has to offer. And we also have one of Beaver's close partners that we work with, Miss Fernanda Iscurdu. I think I pronounced your name right, Fernanda. She's an educational placement specialist that helps find our clients programs to study in Canada. Before you can go study in Canada, you first have to find a school. And there's so many schools in Canada, something we're going to talk about. And finding the right program, whether it's a university or a college or a trade school, is really the first important step, to finding your place in Canada. And Fernanda's going to talk about the costs, the different programs that Canada has to offer. So tonight's presentation will be an hour. I'm going to have each presenter introduce themselves with a brief bio and what they do, and then we'll pass it over to Keith just to introduce and talk about the Canadian experience. Then myself, as the immigration expert, I'll talk about how studying in Canada can lead to citizenship, if that's something you wish to pursue post-graduation. And then Fernanda will talk about different study options that are available, jobs that are in demand, the experiences of many South Africans who have gone to study in Canada, as Fernanda has a tremendous amount of experience placing many South Africans. And yes, of course, please type in your questions in the comment section. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible before we wrap things up at 7 p.m. So Keith, maybe you can just give a quick little introduction in terms of who you are and what you do on behalf of the government here in South Africa.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much, Nicholas. My name is Keith Banerjee. I am a trade commissioner with the High Commission of Canada in South Africa. I've been in Johannesburg at our trade office here for closing it on 4 years, actually. We have a trade office in Rosebank. And what I do here is to try to help actually, the fundamental of what I do is try to help Canadian businesses in their efforts to find success here. And of course, our educational institutions in Canada are often here in South Africa and the region trying to attract international students to attend their programs on their campuses in Canada. And I support their efforts to do that. So I often do presentations just like this on the world of possibilities that awaits in Canada. And I look forward to delivering my presentation.
Okay, and Fernanda, maybe just introduce yourself and what it is you do helping people come to Canada as students.
Yeah, my name is Fernanda Izquierdo. I'm a Brazilian, but I live in Canada for 10 years. I hold a master's degree in chemical engineer, and also I was a student. I'm here to help you guys to find the best school and program suitable for your experience or your desire to develop new skills. Our company is located in Calgary, Alberta. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks, Fernanda. And I know many of you met me this past weekend at the Immigration Expo here in Santon, but my name is Nicholas Avramis. I'm the owner of Beaver Immigration. I am a Canadian immigration consultant living here in South Africa. And what Beaver does, our role is, as a licensed immigration company, we help people process their immigration applications to Canada, whether it's for study permits, various work permits, or business immigration programs. We process and submit those applications as a private company, and that's the role of Beaver Immigration. So Keith, why don't I hand it over to you and provide the audience with just a very brief overview of the Canadian experience.
I see that you're emphasizing the word brief there. I'll see what I can do, Nicholas. I do have a presentation that I think is should be visible now. Oops. Yeah, there we go. So thank you for that. Again, Keith Banerjee, Trade Commissioner in South Africa. I'm here today to present on the world of possibilities that awaits for you in Canada. My presentation is divided in 3 parts. So first I'll talk about what it's like to live in Canada, and then we'll talk about your educational options, and then we'll talk about how you can translate your educational experience in Canada into success. So the first part is really just an overview of what it's like to live in Canada. You can see some amazing images there of what Canada is like. Of course, as we've been trying to attract students to come to Canada, the pandemic has had quite a disastrous effect in our ability to welcome international students. Hopefully that's ending soon. But in the wake of the pandemic, we have built a number of websites where you can go and tour campuses in Canada. You can go and take a look at our wildlife and wilderness, take a look at some of our cultural contributions, and all of these links are available on this website here at the very end, www.educanada.ca, and that is going to be one of the main takeaways from my message, is that should be your first stop for resources. A little bit about Canada. Most of you already know that Canada is the second largest country in the world, divided into 10 provinces and 3 territories. We're a bilingual country in English and French. You can see there in the middle that, I don't know how to describe that shape, the sort of longer province called Ontario. That is about the same size as South Africa, so that gives you a sense of the scale. Canada's prides itself on being one of the most diverse and inclusive countries in the whole world. Our Prime Minister Trudeau often says that diversity is our strength, and we have officially adopted multiculturalism as an official Government of Canada policy. We think that lends itself directly into being one of the most competitive economies in the world. When you have people from around the world all contributing their home cultures perspectives on a problem and you put all those people around a table together, then what you end up with is all the best possible solutions that the world has come up with to come up with the best possible solution available. And that, of course, leads to a very entrepreneurial society. And then here are some of the main hubs that we have for our entrepreneurial companies. And it has led to a number of innovations, many of which you probably aren't aware of. So I have a list of them here on my the side of my desk. Things like IMAX technology, the AM radio, a cardiac pacemaker, Java software, insulin. We'll get to the fellow who won the Nobel Prize for that. Of course, things that are very familiar to Canadians, like the Robertson screwdriver, or a snowmobile, or a Zamboni. There's a Zamboni on the left side of your screen there. Some Canadians you may know, so of course our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, a very famous astronaut Chris Hadfield, and an environmentalist David Suzuki, and some that are more in popular culture like Celine Dion, Drake, and The Weeknd, all Canadian. So now we move into the part of the presentation that talks about an education in Canada. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, many of our institutions have transitioned and incorporated e-learning solutions to their offering. We're quite unsure at this moment what what the next few years are going to look like in terms of on-campus versus hybrid education. We think that hybrid education is here to stay, so some component of an education in Canada is going to include online learning. We rank third in the world and first for quality of life. We have in Canada some of the best ranked institutions in the world. But one of the other takeaways I want you to get for this presentation is that Canadian educational institutions are consistently offering high quality education. I mentioned that our universities and colleges are very highly ranked. We have 8 Canadian universities in the top 200 in the world, 3 in the top 100 for MBA programs. There are 100 universities and 200 colleges in Canada, all offering you 15,000, there it is, undergraduate and graduate programs, so a wide variety for you to choose from. All supported by a very thriving research culture. You can see among our peers in the OECD, we are contributing more than our peers in terms of research and development. And of course, it leads to recognition. So here are some of the very recent Nobel Prize winners and some more historical ones as well. So on the bottom left, you can see Lester B. Pearson, who is known for solving the Suez Crisis in 1956, which he won the Nobel Peace Prize for. He's also essentially the patron of our diplomatic efforts around the world. Our headquarters in Ottawa is named the Pearson Building. And here's the fellow who discovered insulin, Frederick Banting. Some links to South Africa, some of these I've borrowed. So Elon Musk has a Canadian mother. He studied at Queen's in Canada. I don't think he'll tell you that he's Canadian, but he certainly has some educational history with Canada. Nelson Mandela was the very first honorary Canadian citizen, which was bestowed on him in 2001. And he's also an order of our highest order, the Order of Canada, in '98. Neil Blomkamp is a Joburg native who went to the Red Hill School, moved to Vancouver when he was 18, and then went on to direct amazing blockbusters like Elysium and Chappie and District 9. So there's a perfect example of a student from South Africa, went to Canada, got a great education, and translated it into success. One of the benefits of education in Canada is your ability to work while you're studying, and then and then after you've graduated as well. So Nick and Fernanda will talk about your opportunities there. After graduating, I believe that, and Nick and Fernanda can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can stay in Canada for up to 3 years, depending on the length of your studies on your study permit, getting experience in exactly the thing that you just got trained to do. So this is a valuable way to translate your training into real life experience. And we think that combination of excellence in education and opportunity to apply your training puts us ahead of all of our peers in the world in terms of where you can possibly go for an education. Some practical information. I'd mentioned the website educanada.ca. I encourage you to visit that website where you can find all the program offerings that are available in Canada at all of our institutions, according to what level you want to study and what field. briefly to talk about the finances that you'll need to scratch up to get to Canada. On average, an international undergraduate student can expect to pay about 400,000 Rand in tuition, and graduates about 240,000 Rand. And we ask international students to fund that education the same way that we ask Canadian students to fund that education, which is through their own family resources and their own efforts to pay off their education through work. So while I do get a lot of questions on what types of scholarship Canada offers, one of the reasons we are so flexible in allowing you to work while you're in Canada is because that's exactly how Canadian students pay for their education. Nonetheless, we did ask a smattering of Canadian education institutions what type of scholarships they offer to South African students, and here's just a sampling of the answers that we got back. What I would suggest is that when you've decided on what type of program and what type of institution you want to study at, then you should go in and do your own research in terms of what scholarships those institutions offer. But there were so many that I actually had to put it on 2 slides so to give you a sense of the extent of the scholarships that are available. One that's not on here, as a matter of fact, is the University of Ottawa, that just a few months ago brought about a scholarship that's open only to African students in an effort to attract more students from Africa. That's the University of Ottawa. Some online resources for you. I have mentioned now three times. The Edu Canada website. If you'd like to find information from the government on study permits, travel restrictions, COVID-19 restrictions, I encourage you to go to the website cic.gc.ca. If you're looking for more fun videos of what it's like to study in Canada, you can take a look at our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and there you can see my Twitter handle in case you'd like to follow me and see all the meetings I'm having with officials here in South Africa, and a few other websites that you can see what's happening. And that's all I have to share. Let me see how I can, there we go, stop presenting. Over to you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Keith. What a wonderful introduction to Canada and all it has to offer. And now let's quickly transition to really the immigration component. I know a lot of people listening here, obviously that their primary motivation is to go and study and pursue studies in Canada. But at the same time, one of the things that the Canadian government allows students to do is stay after their studies. And it allows them to, it has created a pathway towards citizenship should they decide to pursue citizenship after their studies. And you have to understand that the government's philosophy is, if you make the investment in Canada, they've created a pathway for people to contribute to the society and the economy. So what is the current landscape of Canadian immigration policy today? Well, what I can report to you is this month, the Canadian government announced that in 2001, we had a record year where 405,000 new permanent residents were admitted into Canada. So this is a record setting year. So what are the current targets? Well, Canada, despite what's been happening with COVID, Canada has a target of admitting 1.3 new permanent residents by the end of 2024. It's an ambitious target, but those of you who, some of you may not be on the line today for study, but just purely for immigration, now is the time. Canada is looking to continue to fill those labor shortages. We don't know what the immigration landscape is going to look past 2024, but for 2022 this year, the quota is 431,000. In 2023, it's 447,000. And in 3 years from now, in 2024, it's 451,000. And why is that? Why are these numbers so large? One thing that must be mentioned, and Keith and Fernanda can talk about this in their discussion as well, Canada is a nation of immigrants. I'm parents of immigrants. Fernanda's an immigrant. We are in our 5th wave of immigration. The last time Canada admitted this many immigrants was right after the Second World War. And I don't want anyone on the line to be worried about xenophobia. I know that's a constant theme and concern in the South African market, but 72% of Canadians think immigration is a good thing and adds to the Canadian economy. So why does Canada encourage international students? Well, there are about 700,000 students in Canada right now, plus or minus. I believe about 200,000 study permits were approved in 2021. Canada is in the top 10 of highest educated population. Foreign students add about $15 billion to the economy and help support thousands of jobs. So who goes and studies into Canada? Well, there are high school students that go to private high schools. A very big percentage of foreign students are the varsity students or undergraduate students, that 19 to 26-year-old cohort. Then we do have a large master's students, that 25 to 32-year-old contingent. That's a lot of MBAs, Masters of Science. And then we do have what we call mature students, that 30 to 35-year-old. They're looking to recast themselves, retool for a secondary career, maybe in the workforce. So at a very high level, how does what we call from study to citizenship work at a very high level in Canada? Well, if you go and study in Canada at a Canadian university or a Canadian academic institution from anywhere from 1 to 3 years, you are eligible for what we call the postgraduate work permit, okay? What we call the PWP work permit. Essentially, the postgraduate work permit is an open work permit that allows foreign students who have graduated from an accredited Canadian academic institution to work anywhere in the country, in any job, unfettered. The reality is no other country does this. The UK kind of does this, Australia kind of does this, but there's strings attached. Your job has to be in your field. You have so many days to find a job. The Canadian government gives graduates an open work permit with essentially no strings attached. Not to get into the details, but within this 3 years, depending on the length of your program of study, all you have to really do is accumulate 12 months of work experience and enter the express entry system, which is the points system, and you can apply for permanent residence. And then within 2 or 3 years, based on your work experience, you can apply for citizenship. So in essence, the Canadian government's philosophy is, if you have made the investment into a Canadian education, if you've been able to assimilate into the fabric of Canadian society, and you want to stay and be part of the Canadian experience, they've created a direct pathway towards citizenship. Really, no other country does this with this amount of ease and clarity for foreign students. So let's talk about the study permit. In order to be eligible for a Canadian study permit, first thing is first. You have to be accepted into a Canadian academic institution. And a Canadian academic institution is what's known as a designated learning institution, DLI. This can be a university, a trade school, a vocation school. There's over 50 to talk to you about many of them. The other most important factor in terms of your eligibility for a Canadian study visa is absolutely have to demonstrate that you have the finances in order to pay for your first year of tuition and your living expenses and your transportation costs to Canada. So you have to have this money or liquid assets in your bank account, or you have to have a sponsor. Usually, typically, your parents or family friend has to demonstrate that. Beyond that, the visa office is looking for a police clearance certificate, a medical exam, and something that's really overlooked, and something that Viva really helps on, is what is your motivation to go study in for Canada? A classic error when people are applying for their study permit is they just fill out the forms, hand in their letter of acceptance, maybe a police clearance letter, but they don't write in their cover letter why it is they want to go study in Canada. It is a really important factor in determining the success or failure of your study visa. The government wants to know, why is it you want to come and study in Canada? So let's quickly review what happens after you finish your studies in Canada. To be eligible for the postgraduate work permit, you have to finish your program. And again, I have to stress this because as an immigration professional, it does happen where we do send students over to study in Canada, and we get calls from our clients who didn't finish their program, and then they want a work permit. It doesn't work that way. You have to go to Canada, you have to finish your program, and you have to graduate. Then you can apply for your postgraduate work permit that will allow you to work either full-time, part-time, or you can start your own business and be self-employed, okay? Depending on your length of study, the postgraduate work permit is open for up to 3 years, and you can work anywhere in the country. So now you're probably wondering, well, how do I find a school in Canada? How do I get started? I'm in South Africa. How is this all going to work? So this is really where somebody like Fernanda, who's gone through this whole experience herself as a new Canadian, comes into the picture. So Fernanda, I just want to ask you a very open-ended question. How does somebody find a school in Canada? What are the things you need to consider? Obviously, we need to look at grades, location. What goes into this process when people come to you?
Sorry, I was on mute. The first thing you have to look at is the program, because we have programs that are not competitive, so it's just first come, first service. So we have to present all your documents, and then you go in the queue, and then you receive your offer. But some other programs are more competitive, so you need to have, as Nicholas mentioned, high grades, and also all the documents in place. Special programs, for example, like arts or 3D, maybe you have to submit a portfolio. It's a little bit more complicated process because they want to see if you have the skills to get into the program. So basically, the first step is look at where and what program you want to see which type of program is it competitive or not, so we can guide you through that.
Okay. Now, Fernanda, when we talk to whether it's 19-year-olds, 29-year-olds, and even some 39-year-olds, and the topic of study comes up, people automatically assume that when you go to study in Canada, it has to be for 4 years. But that's not the case. There are obviously universities, which you can talk about, but there's other different types of programs that Canada offers. There's 1-year certificate programs, 2-year diploma programs, and you and I are both seeing people going into IT and digital marketing. So maybe you can talk about the shorter programs and the types of skills people are trying to develop for the new economy. And Keith, maybe you can add on at the end of that as well.
Yeah. Here we have certificates, we have diplomas, we have fast track programs. That's kind of a mix of a 3-year diploma, but they make that shorter if you have a degree, for example, in the area. And then we have university master. I myself, I came for a diploma, so I took 2 years diploma in business. And then after that, I decided to go for a master because I had a degree from back home in engineer, so I was able to go for a master degree as well. So I know both. When we talk about colleges, diplomas, and certificates, they are more hands-on oriented. So they are more focused on practical things. They prepare you to the market. When you talk about university, for example, or master degree, as I took here in Canada, you have more research, and then you have more theoretical learning. So if your goal is go for the market straight after the school, college maybe can be an option. If you want to develop a career, for example, as a researcher, or go for more studies in the future, degree or a master degree is also a great opportunity.
Keith, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I
on
completely
college versus university and the kind of trade programs.
Yeah, I completely agree with Fernanda. As a matter of fact, our colleges, so we have about 200 colleges and 100 universities. Our colleges are really what sets Canada apart in terms of our educational offering in the world. We recognized about a generation ago that our universities were doing a great job at training minds and getting out research papers, but they really weren't preparing people for the workforce. So we dedicated an awful lot of resources to really improving the quality of our colleges so that people could learn valuable skills that could then be applied in the workplace. So what I like to say is that if you want to learn how to train your mind, you go to a university, but if you want to learn how to work, you go to a college. And Fernanda's absolutely right that universities they have the traditional 4-year bachelor's degree, 2 or 3 year masters, PhD, all of those well understood offerings. But it's the colleges where you can get a 2-year diploma certificate in a thing that the industry around the college is asking the college to open seats and work on machines that their graduates are then going to be applying in that industry.
Okay.
Something that I would like to add, sorry, we have here also the university transfer. Sometimes the student is not already sure if they want to go for a degree, so they can take 2 years in a college, and then depends on the program, they are linked to a university here, so you can transfer the credits and start the second year in the degree instead of the first year. So there is some options to transfer credits between institutions as well.
Okay. So both Keith and Fernanda, what are the skills in demand in the Canadian economy right now? I know as an immigration professional, Canada has a lot of immigration programs designed to attract IT professionals. Again, that's a webinar for another day. But what are the industry asking of colleges? I know, Fernanda, you and I send a lot of South Africans to colleges that specialize in IT, but what are you seeing? What is the demand for Canadian engineering? What are the critical skills shortages in Canada?
I can talk about Alberta if you want.
Okay, sure.
Well, I'm here in Alberta, so I will give you more idea about the market here. So in Alberta, we are shifting our market here. Before, we were more focused on oil and gas industry, but now the government is attracting, for example, companies from IT, technology. We have a big center from Amazon. They are building here that's going to generate like thousands of jobs. So the idea here in Alberta is to attract IT professionals or also work with specialized jobs like engineers and so on. Of course, I live in Alberta, but I'm not just specializing in Alberta, but I'm giving some idea what I'm living right now here in my province. Mm-hmm.
Keith, what are you hearing from the national perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, first off, we're always on the lookout for professional ice hockey players. So if anyone has these skills, then we are very welcome to come talk to us. But in all seriousness, there's sort of a changing list of most sought after professions, but it's always guided by what we think and what the world thinks is going to be the future of work, right? So anything to do with artificial intelligence, machine learning, cybersecurity, computer programmers. I mean, there's just such a, I mean, the number of spots that are opening up in our colleges for computer programmers, it just keeps growing and growing, and it seems as though the market just can't absorb. The market is constantly hungrier for more and better trained people in those fields. So really, we're focused on the future. And less focused on sort of the more traditional trades and even academic pursuits. Yeah, so the more creative you can be in terms of where you think the world economies are going, the more receptive Canada will be to your application.
Also, I have seen growing in the arts area, for example, for films, for 3D, graphic designers, especially here in my area, like in Alberta, and also in Vancouver area. Also, we see a lot of activities in that, in games, video game. If you like to play video games and you want to build your games, here is the place.
Okay. I'm going to both have to give you a little bit of pushback. That there is still space for a liberal arts degree and master's degree. We had a very complicated case here at Beaver Immigration, where we had an older gentleman who as an English major, and he wanted to pursue his master's in poetry and got it accepted into a very specialized master's in poetry at the University of Regina. His visa got rejected the first time. We spent about 6 months on the second application. So for anyone listening, it's not all about IT and digital economy. There is still a place for those who want a vocation in the traditional liberal arts. Again, we have over 1,500 designated learning institutions. And even more private schools, over 10,000 programs. And what I tell clients is that working with Fernanda, there is a program for you in Canada, whatever you do want to pursue. But with that being said, the real focus is, all of our clients in Canada, everyone is gearing up for the fourth industrial revolution, if you want to put it that way. That's what they're seeing. That's what we're seeing constantly. I think, Fernanda, most of your clients are pushing to get you into IT programs, digital media, social media courses, that kind of thing. Healthcare too is a big thing. We're starting to see that as well. So Fernanda, before I start we got about 20 minutes left, and there's a lot of questions coming up. So I'm going to put you on the spot because, these questions are coming up. We do have to start talking about costs, tuition costs. So maybe you can give the audience, and I can translate that into Rand. What are the broad range costs for a certificate, diploma, college, spread between the major urban center in Toronto, BC, or Vancouver, smaller communities, in the BC interior or southwestern Ontario? What is the realistic cost for studying in Canada?
Okay, I will give in Canadian dollars, and you guys help me to convert. Okay, so usually you will find the higher cost in Vancouver area. So when you are thinking going to Vancouver, the average cost is about $18,000 a year for a college, a public college, or a polytechnic. We work with one university that's a polytechnic that's about $18,000 and $22,000 per year. If you think about small cities in Canada, around Canada, you can get around $11,000 per year. Of course, they are small communities, but you can have advantage about that, because sometimes that area is like has a demand of qualified professionals. So if you are there, you can also have the opportunity to work in the area. even is a small city, for example. If you think about master degrees or university degrees, you have to think about $27,000 per year, depends on the program. Okay, it's very important to know that depends on the program. If you have lab, if you have more things to do in your course, that's gonna cost you more because you need more resources, right? So if you think a master degree, there are two different types of master degree here in Canada, a thesis-based and course-based. I took myself a thesis-based. That usually you have a scholarship, you have to find a professor who wants to work with you. So for that specific one, I cannot help you because it's like an interview. No, the professor has to like you and then they have to accept you. But the course-based, we work with you. It's a professional master degree. You don't have a thesis, but sometimes you have a project. And the cost is about 25,000, or depends on the institution. You can, if it's an MBA, for example, MBA can cost you more. But let's say about $25,000 a year for a course-based. A thesis-based is less. You can get 12,000, for example, per year, but it's because you have like research and other things involved that puts the cost lower. Okay. Keith, something to add?
No. I think you've given a very specific examples of the tuition costs. They're right on the same sort of level. It does vary quite significantly between large urban centers and small towns, as well as the reputation of the institution that you're going to. So, you know, our stars of University of Toronto and UBC and McGill, and their engineering programs are going to be expensive. They're going to be about 50. But I mean, this is if you're in the league of also applying to Yale, Harvard, or Oxford, right? So yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I graduated in University of Calgary, also good university.
I'm not saying anything.
So I think it's fair to say that there is a broad range. And speaking in South African rand, though, from an entry-level college, you could be looking at anywhere between 130,000 going up to 230,000 rand, to a top-level university at 25,000, which would be about 280,000 rand. Again, it's all dependent. But one thing I do say to clients and to parents of students when they are thinking about making the investment to Canadian education, I say two things. One, based on the level of education, the quality of education, rather, you're going to be received to Canada, it's on the same level as the US, the UK, Germany, okay? World class, okay? And when you take the Canadian dollar versus US dollar, euro, and pound, you are getting a bargain. You are getting a steal. On top of that, as an immigration consultant, because my job is to get people into Canada, my job is to help make them Canadian citizens, to change the trajectory of their family lineage. This is a tremendous advantage or investment, okay? So you need, as an immigration professional, I tell clients, this is what you need to start thinking about. You can't just be thinking about your 2-year program. You need to start thinking about your children and your grandchildren, because you are making a long-term investment. And the reason I say this is people are always concerned about the cost. So it's always top of mind because it's a significant investment. It's a family investment. And these are the issues that, both Fernanda and I are dealing with on a daily basis. Now, let's get with its let's get to some of these questions here.
Hi, Nicholas.
Yes.
Let me interject there. Sorry, I see that there are 3 very commonly asked questions throughout the chat. There's been quite a few. However, I just want to highlight the 3 commonly asked ones. The first one is, is somebody able to study through a Canadian institution from their home country and still qualify for their PR or their postgraduate work permit?
Okay, so that's an immigration question, so let me take that on. Pre-COVID, you absolutely 100% would have to be in Canada, in a Canadian school, basically have your butt in class in Canada to be eligible for the postgraduate work permit. With COVID, especially during 2020, the Canadian government made allowances since travel was restricted. And since, as Keith mentioned very early on in his presentation, because basically all the Canadian academic institutions went online, if you're a foreign student who got their study permit, you can continue your Canadian education courses in your home country online, and it would count towards your Canadian work permit, okay? Right now, there is nothing impeding you to travel to Canada to begin your studies. In fact, Beaver in January sent about 15 students to Canada, fully vaccinated, which is a conversation for another day. But student permits are being issued. Our clients are traveling to Canada to begin studies. So I would say the expectation is you're in Canada right now to begin your studies. Kirsten, what's the second question?
Perfect. So obviously in South Africa, we have a level called honours degree, and that's not necessarily recognized in Canada. So how does that translate in Canada if a South African goes over with an honours?
In what sense?
So obviously here we've got your bachelor's degree, then you'd go on to do your honours, and then you go on to do your master's. So honours is basically, if you were doing a 3-year degree, you would do an additional year, which would give you then your honours, and then you would go on to do your master's.
If I can answer that, my best guess at answering that question is that the extra 4th year to earn your honours is the equivalent of a Canadian bachelor's degree. So I don't think that getting the honours in addition to the 3-year bachelor's degree will get you anything more than essentially would be the equivalent in Canada of declaring a major.
Okay.
In terms of applying for a program, the best thing is to do is send it to the university and wait for them to evaluate, because depends on the program. They can ask you like a degree or honors, they can accept it. So, but I agree with Keith, and probably we will not have any problem, but let's just double check with the institution before.
Okay. And then another common question is, a lot of people are asking, is 39 the cutoff for study? Or if somebody is a little bit older than that, are they still able to apply for a study visa?
So that's an immigration question. There is technically no age restriction for a study visa. In fact, in the whole Canadian Education Act, through the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, there's no age limit to immigration to Canada. However, the reality is, past, let's say 38, 39, it is very difficult to obtain a study visa. The study visa is granted at the discretion by the visa officer at the local visa post. So the further you are in life, you have to demonstrate your rationale as to why at this stage in your life you have decided to go back and study. Now, we have gotten people, Beaver has helped assist people, at 39 and 40, go back to study. But this is usually at the PhD master's level, where there's either been extenuating circumstances where they were prevented from studying, or they're in academia. It's a natural progression. So I had one fellow who was 39, and he had his PhD, and he wanted to go do completely move out of biology and you want to go do IT. He's been in academics his whole life. I had another lady, she was 39, she was unable to study her whole life, but it was her dream to study abroad, and we made the case. But it is highly risky to put in an application, let's say past 37, 38. You are rolling the dice. That there has to be a compelling reason, or you have to show continuity in your education progression, if that answers the question.
Okay, there's two more questions that I think we need to answer, because again, commonly asked. Does one need to study full-time or part-time?
Yes.
In order to, yeah, okay.
Yes, in order for the study permit and to be eligible for the postgraduate permit, which is very important, you have to apply and be accepted into a full-time program.
Okay.
Kirsten, before you ask the second question here, I've seen Aaron's asked a question here in the chat room, which is very important, which you missed. And Aaron's asked, can a spouse work where I'm studying in Canada? Yes. If you apply for a study permit, your spouse and or common law partner can make an application for an open work permit, for a spousal open work permit along with your children. So Kirsten, what was the second question?
Sorry, this one is also very commonly asked, and I think it's sort of self-explanatory why. Heidi's asked, would there be extra fees to travel to Canada, and then also once paying for your studies, what sort of financial state should one be in terms of basically, I think, relating directly to sort of being able to prove, you know, your proof of funds, basically?
Well, in order to obtain the study permit, we always ask clients, and there's really no exceptions, we ask for 6 months worth of bank statements. That's what the expectation unofficially is from the visa post in Pretoria. You know, we want to see a continuity of, you know, the funds in your bank account, or if the money was gifted from a family member, the visa office will accept that. But you really want to be in a healthy financial position to pursue studies in Canada. And, you know, not only does Beaver want to be sending clients that we're sure are going to be safe in Canada, Visa Post is also looking for that too. You know, we want to make sure that you're going to Canada and you're going to be safe financially to be able to continue your studies, and we don't want anything unbecoming to happen to anyone.
Perfect. Sorry, Nicholas, one more question. How can, this I think is more of a Beaver immigration question, how are we able to assist people not living necessarily in South Africa or not from South Africa, so perhaps neighboring African countries, with the immigration process?
Well, obviously, you don't have to be in South Africa to make an application to study in Canada. We have clients all over Africa who we assist with making applications to study in Canada. From an immigration perspective, it is very important in any country you're from, whether it's your country of origin or if you're in South Africa, you do have to have legal status in that country. So for instance, we help a lot of Zimbabwean students here in South Africa who are on legal South African study permits, who are finishing up their undergraduate studies here at UCT or WITS, and they're going to be continuing their educational studies in a master's program or a postgraduate program in Canada. As long as they're on a valid study permit here in South Africa, they can make that application to Canada. Again, any jurisdiction you're in, you just need to have legal status in that country. Christian, I think we have time for one or two questions, either for myself or for Fernanda or Keith.
Okay, maybe this is more for Fernanda, I think. So another commonly asked question is, where would one stay when studying in Canada? What are the
Sorry,
where could
say that again.
Sure. Where could one stay when studying in Canada? Are there res
Oh.
options, or what would have to happen in that
Okay.
case?
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Well, you have many options here. You can stay on campus. Usually universities, they provide dormitories or accommodation inside the campus. If you are a single student, for example, that's going to be a good option. If you are a couple, you have the option to rent an apartment, of course, outside campus. Or some students, sometimes they prefer to stay the first month in a homestay, for example. Sometimes there are colleges or universities, they have a partnership with companies that looking for families where they host the student for a certain time. It's not like for a long time, but sometimes a single student, for example, or a couple maybe can find this as a first month accommodation. Airbnb also is very popular between our students. First month they stay in Airbnb and then they look for the place when they are here in Canada. It's much better so they can visit the apartments or dorms and decide what's the best option for them. Thank you.
Well, we're coming close to the top of the hour. I know there's a lot of people who have sent in a lot of questions. I think there was a question here about Beaver and student pathways. Again, Beaver's role in this is to help assist you find a place to study in Canada and help you secure your study permit in Canada. If you have any more questions, please visit us at Beaver, www.beaverimmigration.com, or the best thing to do is email us at info@beaverimmigration.com. At this time, I'd like to thank Keith from the Canadian Trade Office, who's a dedicated Canadian who's been working very hard to promote Canada and is a great ambassador and friend. And we thank you so much for making time for us this evening. I'd also like to thank you so much, Keith. I'd also like to thank Fernanda for joining us this morning. Fernanda has hundreds of clients from all over the world. I've been working for many years in our South African students placed. I can tell you she works extremely hard. She does not have an easy job placing students because it's a tricky job. It's a lot that goes in, a lot of hard work that goes into it. So with that, thank you, my friends, for making time. And I also want to thank everyone who's joined us this evening. I know immigration, it's a scary thing. It's a big investment in terms of time and emotion. There's a lot of anxiety, but we're here to help. And just make sure you do your own research and you're dealing with Canadians and people who are professionally